we did get, following publication of the packet, which shows a 5-foot landscape buffer along Highway 12. And we had estimated that you could potentially get a little bit smaller than that, noting that we need a 24-foot wide drive aisle, and then we noted that you could reduce those parking spaces a little bit. They are proposing an 18-foot depth parking space with a 24-foot drive aisle, which does give them 5 feet. We had said maybe you could get up to 7, but I think that this is right within the realm of what we had discussed or was being proposed, and they are proposing some landscaping along there is something that we could, that we just saw here, that we could continue to look at with them. In any case, the Planning Commission, with the recommendation that they provide a green space buffer along the parking lot, did recommend approval of the variance for reduction in the 50-foot setback, noting that it was a substantial hardship on this property, just given the overall width of the property. We also talked about architectural guidelines and fenestration. Again, in this particular case, we noted that proposed building has approximately 35% fenestration and openings on the front of the building. With what's being proposed now, the requirements in our architectural guidelines are 60%. And so Planning Commission had that discussion. They had a couple of comments. One, the location of this kind of outside of the exact core of downtown, and the attempt to try to blend this architecture into kind of the surrounding residential was kind of one factor that they believed warranted maybe less fenestration, noting that if it was a downtown kind of typical urban street front, that there'd probably be a different level of fenestration on the front of this building. But so they noted that as kind of one of the reasons that they could support a reduction in the fenestration in this particular case, ultimately recommending approval of the building as proposed. There was a discussion on building materials, whether they could go to a steel or something different. Planning Commission felt that that was something that would have to be looked at as a overall design standard change if we were to consider some other material, and that they weren't ready to make that kind of a recommendation, but they did recommend on the board and batten smart side. So the only other comments that were made by the Planning Commission just related to some of the lighting. They noted that the site does not have any of its own lighting of the parking, but that there would be building lighting. Those gooseneck lights would light up kind of the front piece of that building, would spill onto the parking lot. Staff noted that we would need ultimately a photometric plan, just kind of confirming that those lights don't create glare or other issues, and given the residential to the south would meet the requirements for cutoff at the property line. So the Planning Commission recommended approval of the proposed commercial building and site-related improvements with the conditions that were noted in the staff report, which I did highlight many of the issues that I talked about tonight. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the proposal. I don't see the applicant.
Questions for staff?
Mark, did public safety weigh in on the variance request since we were closer to the highway?
Yeah, I didn't have any comments on the
Okay.
variance itself.
Just want to make sure we're not creating a Highway 12 safety issue here.
Yeah, if it was a building, I think we'd have a different opinion, I think, because of the parking. But the 5-foot buffer gives us, you know,
Okay.
some of that just buffer, or that setback.
Thank you.
Other questions for staff?
More of a comment. Mark, you've been around long enough to know the different suggestions for the use of that property over the course of the years when I was on Planning Commission and City Council. It is a tough lot to put something on, and this, just like the old schoolhouse, is by far the most practical and good-looking use of that property that could happen. So I think it's great.
I just hope it gets built.
Well,
we've done this before.
The garage, though, I mean, that is obviously to park a car or use as a multi-purpose room. It's not going to be a Not gonna be used as a hail damage estimate, type thing. I mean, it's strictly business.
Yeah, I mean.
It's a lot, that's a big garage.
Yeah, it's a good comment, because I thought the same thing, because I'm always thinking, what's next, right? Because if insurance goes bad, although
No.
I don't know that it will, but, yeah, what happens to that space? I think you're right, though, I mean, there is some potential that you get some other reuse of that. They've got a nice garage door on here, I mean, it's got windows and whatever else, I think it blends in.
But there's no service door into the building itself, so it is a separate entity, except for passage into the southern part. So
That's correct.
It's really confusing
Yeah,
as far as a garage.
yeah.
But I'm not gonna let that hang this up.
It's a good comment, I don't disagree with it.
On the west side of the parking lot, does that connect to the parking lot of the building next to it?
It does not. We did have that discussion. It doesn't line up perfectly well. And we had the discussion with the property owner. So if you look at, this is the corner of the Beef Council parking lot. And then, they're up here. So you kind of have to dip down and then through. It creates some cross-access potential issues, and then people cutting around traffic or cutting through. And they just had concerns that they'd rather not
Okay.
create that. I asked the question, should it be connected? And
Yeah.
Planning Commission didn't feel strongly that it should, and they thought some of the logistical, just physical difficulties in making that connection didn't warrant it.
Well, now you'd have service to the parking lot from Highway 12, because you could come off on Pioneer,
Right.
cut across the parking lot into that parking lot and not do the
Make it more
roundabout
busy.
that
Right.
they're gonna be forced to do.
Right, which I thought may be something they'd want to explore,
Yeah.
right? Could they get an
Less
agreement with the
traffic on
Beef Council to
residential.
do that kind of movement, but they had more concerns about
But
it.
it's really not that type of business.
It's not.
I mean, it's an insurance business, so people are making appointments. You're not gonna get too many drive-bys or walk-ins. They're gonna call or go online first.
Am I mistaken when I think of the gooseneck and the LP Smart side?
They don't.
And am I thinking Spikes, the old UFC? I mean, are
Yeah.
they kind of aesthetically going to be the same?
Yeah, a little bit of that. I mean, this definitely, so one of the buildings they brought up as an example was the new building in Delano, just to the west of the Caribou Quick Trip. By the subway on the same side of the road there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the dark
Oh,
brown.
yeah.
It's kind of a dark brown with
Yeah.
a.
It runs
Yep.
north-south.
Yeah, with an orangey
Yeah.
color to it.
But they're putting the pretty side to Highway 12, which I
Right.
Yeah,
appreciate.
so it's kind of, it's kind of this, I don't even know what they call this architecture. I call it kind of like, it's kind of like modern Minnesota, right? I mean, it's what you see a lot right now in a lot of places. It's kind of like this modern farmhouse meets
Well,
industrial, whatever. But it's got a nice feel. So yeah.
I love that they wanna stay in Maple Plain,
Yeah.
and I love that they're willing to invest in a new building and to take a lot that I have heard about, I think, every month in your
It's on my
reports
report on
in
my
my
zip.
6+ years
And it's what
as
we're
an
looking
elected
for on
official.
12.
And it's within our design guidelines, and the sign already is within the guidelines. I personally don't see any concerns. All right, so with that, I'm looking for a motion to approve Resolution 2021-21, approving the request for the site plan review and a variance to allow construction of a new commercial building and associated site development for the property located at 1675 Spring Avenue.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Cahill, second by DeLuca. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote again.
Moskowski,
Aye.
Fay,
Happy to say aye.
DeLuca,
Aye.
DeLong,
Aye.
Cahill.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. All right, next item of business is a sign permit review for 5050 Highway 12.
Honorable Mayor and Council, it's my last item, I promise. This is a request for sign package update approval to allow a new sign for the existing tenant space located at 5020 Highway 12. The applicants approached the city about putting up a sign in front of the vacant tenant space that's associated with this building. This building, as you know, is primarily occupied by Liquor Depot. When Liquor Depot came forward to the city and got site plan approval a number of years ago, they also then came back and got site plan approval separately. Multi-tenant buildings that are either renovated or redone or built new are required to have an approved sign package per our design guidelines and per our sign ordinance. And so at that time, Liquor Depot came back through, they brought to us a potential sign package, but it was noted that they didn't know what the sign was gonna be, and or want to establish approval of the kind of the subordinate space. And so in the approval for their sign permit, it was noted that any signs on this other space would have to come back through and get approved. So that's what we're doing. When we first got this sign from the applicant, we didn't note that. We were still working on kind of how much square footage they had and what materials and interior and internal illumination. But in any case, this depiction is the one that was in the planning packet and the sign package for the liquor store. The significance of it and why I put it in this package is the sign for the Liquor Depot is solely within what I call this kind of sign marquee on the front of the building. And the sign for this subordinate space is shown solely within that marquee. And those do exist on the building today. So when the applicant came in, we can ignore those are all permitted temporary banners, by the way. When the applicant for this space came in, they had not only a sign in this marquee, but they also showed signs on these side spaces. And that was something that staff wasn't comfortable considering. So this was their original sign that they came forward with. So you can see they had not only signage in the marquee, but also on both sides. So when we took it to Planning Commission, it was concurred by Planning Commission that the signage should only be within the marquee, which matches the sign that is on the Liquor Depot side, and that the sign that's on that side, if it has kind of subordinate lettering underneath the main sign, that it would be kind of similar to or consistent with the Liquor Depot subordinate lettering. Well, the applicant came back with a revised sign proposal after the Planning Commission meeting. They're not showing any kind of lower subordinate signage underneath. They're just showing kind of that main signage, which now is solely within the marquee, no longer any signage on either side. And it does fit within the allowable square footage for that particular tenant space. On multi-tenant buildings, we essentially take the lineal square footage of the space that's being leased, multiplied by the face square footage of that overall front facade, and we come up with a total square footage. And in this particular case, in the mixed-use gateway, they're allowed to occupy 10% of that with a sign. So this tenant space, that would be the smoke shop, is allowed 10%, and then Liquor Depot on the rest of their space. We did note their space stops right about here, so they just have this kind of internal. We show that calculation as being 28 square feet total, and they're proposing a sign that's 22.94, so 23. I will also note that internally illuminated signs are not proposed. They originally proposed an internally illuminated sign. This sign that's being proposed is halo or backlit, which is similar to the Liquor Depot sign in that regard. So it is compliant with the sign standards. So with that, Planning Commission recommended approval subject to those requirements. And the applicant did revise the plan that's in front of you tonight based on those recommendations. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff regarding the sign proposal?
Can you describe, Mark, the difference between backlit and internal lit?
Sure. So in an internally illuminated sign, the actual channel, it's kind of a plastic channel. The illumination source goes inside of that, and then it lights up that channel so that that channel kind of glows outward. On a backlit sign, the illumination source or the lighting source is behind the lettering, not inside the lettering, and it lights kind of a halo effect on the wall behind the lettering, which has a different feel and appearance. Now, some people would say that there is no difference, right? It's very much similar. But if you really studied the signs, the backlit is a completely different type of illumination. And it doesn't have that kind of same neon glow through the sign that a halo lit, even though the signage is translucent and allows that light to pass through. The light source is going off the wall versus going through the sign.
Thank you.
Other questions for staff? Okay, I'm looking for a motion to approve Resolution 2021-22, approving a sign plan for the property located at 5020 Highway 12 in the city of Maple Plain.
So moved.
Moved by DeLuca,
Second?
second by Fay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same
Was
sign?
this a
Just a
resolution?
resolution.
Oh,
Mayor?
sorry. Yes, it is.
Cahill,
Aye.
DeLong,
Aye.
DeLuca,
Aye.
Fay,
Aye.
Moskowski.
Aye. The ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you, Mark, for all your work tonight.
Thank you. Some exciting projects.
It's
Keep going in
super
the city. It's really
exciting.
good.
It's- Yeah, and we're gonna let you and Attorney Landsman change seats, and then we'll move on with our next item of business.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Up on the counter. Do you want me to recess for 5 minutes, or are you guys okay? You're good? You okay? Okay. Nope, that's fine, I just. All right, we will move on to new business, letter F, letter E, hazardous property, 5210 Main Street West. And I will turn that over to Attorney Landsman and Administrator Hadler.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Before we start, there's a few minor changes to the resolution order that have been made from the version that's in the agenda packet. They're minor changes. In the resolution itself, any mention of Minnesota statute sections 463.15 and 463.261, whereas there's an and, it's just changed to a T-O, okay? Then Exhibit 1 of the order, which is the resolution, has the same change. There's maybe 3 spots where that change was made. I apologize for any confusion. And a copy of the corrected documents, they were emailed to the property owner's attorney last week, so they were aware of it, and I let them know that there was a change, and those documents have also been handed over to the city administrator. So for consideration, as we go through this, for consideration tonight will be that resolution with those changes. So with regard to the matter itself, on July 1st, 2021, the city, with the consent of the property owner, conducted an internal inspection of property located at 5210 Main Street, Maple Plain. In attendance was Clarissa Hadler, David Stark with Bolton and Mank, Mike Rosno, and Todd Geske, both from Metro West. The purpose of the inspection of the property was to evaluate the condition of the existing structure in order to identify structural deficiencies. David Stark provided a structural inspection report of the property based on the July 1 inspection, which is attached as Exhibit A to the resolution. Mike Rosnow provided his report dated July 12, 2021 based on a June 7th, 2021 external inspection of the property and that July 1st internal inspection. That Metro West report is attached as Exhibit B to the resolution. The city has notified via mailing the property owners of record and suspected property owners of record and their known agents that the city council was considering this matter tonight. City staff, including David Stark and the Metro West representatives, are present tonight to provide information to the city council. I actually say it's Mike who's going to be presenting on behalf of Metro West, and Todd is here to answer any questions if needed. The property owners of record should have an opportunity to provide their presentation to the city council. This is not a public hearing. After being presented with all reports, presentations, and other information, staff is asking that the city council make a determination if the property is a hazardous building under Minnesota statutes 463.15, which is defined as any building or property which, because of inadequate maintenance, dilapidation, physical damage, unsanitary condition, or abandonment, constitutes a fire hazard or a hazard to public safety or health. If the city council does make that determination, staff is recommending that the city council adopt a resolution finding that the building on the property is a hazardous building, and that the attached order, the order is attached to the agenda item, to repair, remove, or raise the hazardous building is also approved. If those are approved, the next step would be that staff would serve the resolution and order on the owners of record and all lien owners of record. This is served in the same way that a someone's complaint would be served, so it would be through my office. They would have 20 days to file an answer. If there's no answer, or the conditions of the resolution and order are not timely met, the city may file the action with the court for compliance. So at this point, everything's going to be internal. It's just if they don't meet the conditions in the time frame, then we have a right to go to the court to seek compliance with the order. The order provides that the property owner is going to have 60 days from the order being served to make all corrections and repairs. The city council may shorten or lengthen this time period as part of tonight's approval. But the resolution order itself, I put 60 days in there. And that's a part of a discussion point that the council can have. The city does have the opportunity to recover its enforcement costs at the conclusion of the city's enforcement action if approved by the court. It's either a judgment against the property or the property owner, or a special assessment against the property payable in a single installment. So if there's no questions at this point, I'd like to have David Starr come up and do his presentation, and then Mike would come up after that. And then when that's done, if there's no more questions after that, then we'll have the property have a chance to talk, present to the council, and then at that point there could be more discussion with regards to the matter and consideration of the resolution of the order.
Any questions at this time for Attorney Landsman? All right, hearing none, we will turn it over to David Stark of Bolton Mank. Please come forward to the podium and adjust the microphone accordingly.
So, like Scott said, July 1st, we were on site to inspect the building structure for structural integrity. It was first asked that we inspect the building based on this kind of north side of the building. There'll be a better picture here in a couple of pictures. The hip of that roof is started to collapse, and there's an open hole. The first couple pictures here are just overview of the building from the different sides. So then these pictures in order follow the findings bulleted in the report. So the first one, north hip of the roof, you can see is partially collapsed. The shingles have pulled away and left a pretty big hole in the roof. We recommended repair and further investigation of the rafters along that area, just to make sure everything stays tight. Then the next one here is there was evidence of fire damage in the floor joists, girders, and posts supporting the first floor. You can tell the east side has evidence of reinforcement, the sister joist, but the west side didn't. The west side had evidence of degradation of approximately 1/8 to 1/4 inch deep from just charring. So we recommended reinforcement of the west side in order to bring that floor capacity back up to original design intent. Just additional pictures of that charring. The posts, in addition to the joists and the girders, had signs of fire damage and section loss. There you can see down towards the base the approximate amount of section loss. We measured to be about a 1/2 inch each side, 1/4 to 1/2, depending on the area. And that included some section loss and rotting at the base of the posts. Back out to the outside, you can kind of see it in the left side of that picture. The ridge itself fluctuates, and that's the edge of the roof. The extreme left side is the side that actually partially collapsed. So we recommended going in and doing further investigation along that ridge board, trying to determine if any of the connections have failed, or if the problem stems from the top of the walls. Here, just an interior condition of the roof, rafters, and the direction of framing. One more. And there you can see kind of the top of the ridge, some of the gaps between the roofing boards there. Like I said in regards to the roof fluctuations and deflections, the walls appeared on both the east and the west near the top to be bowing slightly out from the base of the wall. I believe the next picture shows it a little bit better. You can see kind of the gutter bows out there. And then down in the basement, excuse me, the concrete foundation walls were observed to be spalling and had areas of cracking and just general decay from years of moisture seeping through the walls. And we also noted a handful of, or several, non-structural items that would impact just future renovations of the building, and were worth noting. One of them was standing water in the basement along the foundation wall, a significant amount of condensation and moisture present in the basement, and then evidence of moisture and mold throughout the whole second floor. Then based on our field observations, the existing structure as structural and likely non-structural deficiencies that we recommend should be addressed prior to continued occupancy of the structure.
Thank you, David. Does anyone have any questions for David? All right, hearing none. Next, we'll hear from Mike Rosenau of Metro West. And I apologize if I murdered your name. Please correct me when you get up there.
Yeah, so just based off of our report and our inspection, I think we showed a lot of the same photos that, we're seeing. Our determination is just coming from, the key points and that's the deterioration of the sections on the foundation, decayed and rotted wood, evidence of the roof leak, holes in plaster. It's kind of laid out in our report. Has everybody seen that? Or, and that pretty much what we're determining falls within the guidelines and the definition of a hazardous building. So there's, the photos kind of match what we've all seen, and it appears to me in our determination is pretty accurate with that definition.
Any questions for Mike or Todd for Metro West? Administrator Heather?
Mike, can you speak to how existing buildings, how they have to be brought up, do they have to be brought up to building codes when they're redone? So if they wanted to repair this building?
Correct.
What would the standards that they would be held to be?
So any aspects of the current building that are going to be affected and repaired would be brought up to the current building code standards. So it's not just going to be bring it back to original. It's going to be original plus the current standards of the code.
Okay.
And that would I guess to add to that would be with structural engineer and architectural designs to do that for a commercial building.
So that's energy codes, HVAC, et cetera, et cetera?
Correct. And that's my understanding. Anything that's opened up for repair would be brought back to the current, or brought up to the current standards.
I have one, if I can ask a question.
Yes, Attorney
So-
Litzman.
And that determination would be made at the time of building permit?
Correct. Yep. They're licensed professionals, so their architect would draw the plans up to the current standards.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Other questions for Metro West? Okay. Thank you
All right.
very much. Next, we'll hear from the applicant.
I'm sorry, the property.
The property owner.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
if the property owner would like to come forward to the podium, please, and introduce yourself.
Barbara Voorhees, owner of 5210 Main Street and Magnolia Properties, LLC. I have to say some of the pictures, you might be interested in some of the history. You saw a coal chute picture of when the coal used to come in. You saw a fire burned out rafters from a 1920s fire that has been, over the years, been certified as standard or safe by inspectors over the years. The last water main break forced us to reinforce those burned rafters. So they were pretty solid. I received a purchase agreement from Ebert Construction this past Wednesday for the property. Gary Hayes of Ebert Construction and I are talking again tomorrow about the agreement. I have signed it. So we are hoping to move forward with that sale. Given that, the due diligence period of that agreement is 120 days and has two 60 days extensions if necessary. According to my attorney, it's a standard commercial property purchase agreement. There's nothing specific about it. In addressing the resolution, it states the building is open to vandals and not secure. This is incorrect. All the doors in the building are secure and have always been secure. The only open section on the building is a small hip roof. There haven't been any vandalism issues or unauthorized entry of the property since I purchased it in 1995. There hasn't been any vandalism issues or unauthorized entry on the property since the water main damage of 2011 or the water main damage of 2015. The property is checked every couple of weeks to make sure it's secure. Addressing number 4, update on demo and remodeling situation. I've talked to 2 companies about demolition. Locally, J. Reed Excavating and Veet Demolition. Both are backlogged. In an attempt to look at other options, I tried several attempts to contact the Maple Plain Fire Department for a burn exercise. I stopped by the fire department station office. I called the phone number listed on the website, which, by the way, does not work. It disconnects. And on September 2nd, I sent an email to the fire chief at the email addressed on the website, asking for someone to contact me. I have not had a response to that email. As I have already provided to the city a list of contractors for roof repair, there hasn't been any luck in securing a bid. Most are backlogged and no longer do roof repairs. They only do new roofing. I've talked to 3 construction companies. 2 are interested in remodel. One recently backed out for backlog of jobs that he can't get to mine until next spring. The other construction company is interested in a remodel of the original 99-year-old building. If the property is not sold, the roof and second floor, plus the west addition, could be removed, eliminating the repairs to those areas. The challenge would be the city infrastructure. What is the city's commitment to repair the infrastructure in order for repairs to be completed in the basement so we don't have a repeat cycle of 2011 and 2015 water main breaks that caused the original damage? The original 99-year-old building would be turned into a rent-to-work space similar to WeWorks, if you're familiar with that concept. Plus the north unit, which I believe the post office was there at one time in history, can accommodate 2 conference rooms and a workroom. It's not that I haven't tried to fix the problem. It's that there are no entities available or willing to talk about finding a way to address it because their schedules are too busy or they don't respond to calls. With that, I ask the city to consider delaying or extending the resolution in order to repair until we have a final confirmation of a sale or can work through possibly turning it into a useful piece of property. To temporarily solve the open hip roof issue, I can ask to have a tarp put over the roof. And one last item. I'd like to ask that my name be corrected in any legal documents. It's Barbara, not Barb. Thank you for your consideration of my request.
Thank you, Barbara.
So, Mayor, members of the council, what we have in front of you is a resolution of consideration and then the order. We can make the change, any change in there so that the name of Barb is changed to Barbara. That's more of a scrivener's error, so I don't know, it probably doesn't need to be addressed for this item. I can take care of that. I believe that one of the items to, like I said, for consideration is the length of time for them to fix the issues. I have a 60-day period in there. Obviously, that doesn't tie into the purchase agreement. I believe that if there is going to be some tying into the purchase agreement, we probably would need some information or maybe a letter from the purchaser to give us some confirmation that this is going on and what the general terms are with regards to the due diligence period when the closing, and maybe keep us informed of what's going on. that's kind of my 2 cents on it, and I can add some more to it as there's discussion.
Comments from council or questions?
Did this purchase agreement catch you by surprise?
I had an inclination that there was something out there, didn't know about the terms, nothing was ever, when I found out about it, there was never, nothing signed. I don't want to bring information up that's speculative, so the fact that it's actually signed, is, and I didn't know what the parties were either, but the fact that it's signed, is new news for me. I don't believe that would have, it would have changed the position of staff with regards to bringing this to the council, because this problem has persisted, and you've seen the pictures.
So, if there's a purchase or agreement in place, and then they sell the property,
Mhm.
we're back here doing the same thing, or how does this play out? Because now we have a new owner, are they buying then contingent on the fact that this is, it's a little messy and the timing's a little.
Well, I'll tell you explain what happens is that once we know we're moving forward with this, we file a notice of lis pendens against the property that would provide anybody who buys the property with notice of the potential lawsuit or the potential matter going on, and then they take it with that matter. So they're still, so it would, think of it as it runs with the property.
So would it just be a matter of adjusting the timetables in the document to correlate with those timeframes that are required under Minnesota law for purchase agreements to run through their steps?
Well, I will say purchase agreements are contractual, so it's whatever the parties agree to. That's why we need to see some of these essential terms with regards to the actual time periods. We can run it, we can craft some language to work within it if staff determines that it's an actual valid purchase agreement, that there's somebody working with it, because I believe that we would like to see this taken care of. And if there's an entity out there that will take care of it, but just because they purchase it doesn't mean that the problem goes away.
Right.
Nor are we assured that a purchase agreement will go through.
Correct.
Is there any reason, Scott, that we can't keep the 60-day time frame? You progress on that?
What we could do is we could have a 60-day time period, but the city, for the next step of following it with the court, it's a May. We don't have to, so we can have it run its course, have it sit there as a potential, we may do this to help kind of push it along, to get it fixed. And it is possible too to come up with a settlement agreement with the new potential, with the current property owner or the potential property owner that would get it outside of this process, and then it's just basically working through a contract law, and it would get us in a position of making sure that somebody's gonna take care of it, or that we have a mechanism if they don't.
Isn't the essential question here, is this a hazardous property?
Correct.
Because to me, that answer was very clear after the presentations tonight.
Mm-hmm.
It is. We need to do something about it.
And then if it is determination by the council that it's hazardous, and that's the purpose for the resolution, there's no reason we couldn't keep the 60-day period in there with staff determination of whether or not, if things are progressing with the purchase agreement, we're comfortable that we don't go for the summary enforcement courts. We could do that.
Assuming that we reach the conclusion that it is a hazardous building,
Mhm.
we have to have a hard stop. And I don't know how that gets crafted in there, that allow the building owner to run the process of trying to complete a purchase agreement, but there has to be a a end certain date that says you were given sufficient time to do this, it never materialized, we're taking action, correct?
Correct. A order with no deadline means nothing.
It's not.
Correct.
Right, so you have to have some kind of end period for them to, work through this. You could, like I said, but also you have that time period, we're saying, hey, get this thing fixed. But if staff feels that you're working towards it, maybe the purchase agreement falls apart, but they hire a company to architect, and they go in and they fix it, and staff feels comfortable with it. Well, even though it may go past that 60-day period, we're not going to take action because things are getting done. Same way, if staff feels that the purchase agreement is taking its steps that it needs to take, and it's still moving forward, then the staff can hold on to it without taking that step with the court. The only proviso to that, if there's an extension to time, is I would want some comments or what I don't know about is how much of immediate need is it to get fixed. And if it goes for 120 days, or goes for 120 days plus the 2 extension periods, which I will say that's normal for a commercial real estate deal. But if it does go, how long can the structure stay the way it is without work getting done on it? That is, I don't know the answer to that one, and maybe our building inspector would have a better idea with that.
Well, the building owner has to be running 2 parallel paths then, correct? They have to be concentrating on coordinating the repairs and selling the building. It can't be selling the building and then that falls apart, and now they're going to work on repairing it, because that just puts us out 6 months.
Right, and maybe there's some things they can do so that it takes care of some of the immediate problems, because what we don't know about this purchaser, are they going to raise the building themselves and build something new? That's a possibility. But you are right, there are repairs, the way the order is written, there are repairs that need to be done, and if you're looking to sell the property, that's a secondary issue.
Right. And I'm not comfortable with a blue tarp. I saw sunlight coming through that roof in those pictures. Throwing a tarp up is not an option.
Mm-hmm.
Building owner could choose to take the building down though, too. Could they not?
Yeah.
The choice is theirs.
Right, the way it works out is, whatever the deficiencies are that are with the structure, the building, it needs to be taken care of within 60 days or whatever time period the council picks. That can be by fixing it or raising it.
Without consideration of a pending purchase agreement.
Correct.
Okay,
And-
that's what, I guess that's
yeah.
what I've been trying to.
Yeah, and that option is up to the property owner. I mean, we just want the staff reviewing it, and if the council decides to accept the resolution, is to take care of the hazardous issues and taking care, knocking the structure down and clearing the land would take care of it. That's just one option, that's their option.
Sounds like she has some practical difficulties in getting contractors, though. That's not my problem, is it?
No.
Okay.
No. Your problem, no, not a problem, but the task of the city council under the statute is to identify the hazardous building and to provide and then in there provide what needs to be done and a time frame for it to be done. That's the task of the council under the statute. And I don't have the history with this building, but I have a sense that this has been going on for a while, and so simply because you can't find people now doesn't mean you couldn't have taken care of it previously. And I don't know what the time frame is on that. However, it is what it is, and we're here now.
I do appreciate you bringing that up, because this has been going on for quite some time. I was not able to look back in my notes either, but.
And I'm sorry, I think I sent home the person who probably knows what was going on for quite a period, Mark. But I think, Mayor and the council, members, you've been around for a while, and so you know about the structure and that it's been here. And this is this, we just happen to we now have made the determination to do the external inspection, the internal inspection, and you've seen the results.
All right. Hearing, Administrator Hapler.
Just a question. Could you speak a little bit about the concept of the settlement agreement and what that would look like?
Sure. The settlement agreement itself would be a contract between the property owner or the future property owner, however we work that out, to basically to acknowledge that there are problems with the property. Here's the work that's needs to be done, and here's what they're gonna do with it, and here's the time period that they're going to do. If they don't do it, mechanisms that we can have in order to make sure it gets done is the ability for the city to go ahead and go in and take care of it. But we would want to have some kind of surety involved with regard to it, and the only reason I say that is because even if we go through this process and we go through assessments against the property that's payable within 1 year, going through that process and a tax forfeiture takes time. It's still money the city will have to come up with up front in order to take care of the issue, if that's where we get to. If we get to a spot where the city has to, under a settlement agreement, where the city would have to then go in, the letter of credit, some surety deposit, or whatever we have would be available to help defer the cost, and anything above and beyond that, then they would be liable for on that. Plus, if there is a default with regards to the settlement agreement, it's contract law, and either you did it or you didn't do it, and here's what the contract says. And it's less of not saying this would be an uphill battle for the city, but it's less of an uphill battle if there's an arm's length transaction, to enforce the contract provisions. It'd be no different if there was a lawsuit for code enforcement. We came to a settlement agreement, and I'll go clean it up. That's it.
Thank you.
I would be in favor of extending the time to match a purchase time frame, knowing that there's a contract from somebody who we have an agreement with to build downtown.
We don't have an agreement with someone to build downtown.
We have
what?
Don't we have a?
We've got
No.
nothing
We've got
formal
nothing.
whatsoever.
Nothing signed.
We've not put together an agreement whatsoever. We have a acknowledgement that they'd sure like to put something together, and obviously if there's a purchase agreement, they're serious about it, but nothing has been drafted or signed on behalf of the city and a potential developer. So
The purchase agreement should not influence what we do tonight on the determination of the hazardousness of this building.
that's what I was trying to get at.
Correct, and I'm not saying that we're not going to do that. I'm just saying I wouldn't mind giving some time for that purchase to go through.
120 becomes 180, and then it becomes 240. And unless we provide a stake in the ground for our administrator to begin some dialogues about settlement agreements, and you do that by putting this resolution in place, with the 60 days. It becomes the property owner's responsibility then to figure it out or to work with staff. We do not have to file the court proceedings in 60 days. We can choose to hold that at that time.
Okay.
But if we don't approve it tonight, the clock doesn't start ticking.
Right.
And if you would like, what we could, if we keep the 60-day period, 30-day period, whatever period you pick, you know, you can have staff make that determination of whether or not to move forward with the court proceeding, you know, or something that, if, you know, or the council would make that decision too, if you would like to know what's going on. But I think at 60 days, they're still within the due diligence period